Hey, welcome to Speech and Hearing 205, which is exploring communication disorders. Let's talk about some things you need to know for the class. The first thing you need to know about the class is me. Um, some of these pictures are me. Well, some of the people in these pictures are me. This information is usually more exciting to people who are in my in-person classes because they're from Arizona. Um, some of you are, but most of you aren't. So a lot of these place names will just be like, I don't know. I don't really care about cities in Arizona, and that's fine. Who does? But I was born in Mesa. It's a city in Arizona. And then I graduated from Hamilton, which is in Chandler, another city in Arizona. I went to ASU. This is a thing you know, even if you're not from here. I went to ASU right out of high school to get my bachelor's, and then a master's, and then a PhD. My PhD is in cognitive science, and so that cognitive science and sensation and perception, which is it's a break off of psychology. It has nothing to do with, like a psychologist. It has nothing to do with that. It's actually, cognitive science is way more of an area that exists kind of at the intersection of biology, medicine, physics, a little bit of psychology, of just like, what do you see? What are the perception that you have of like light coming into your eye, or what are you hearing? Things like that. And in fact, speech and hearing sciences were originally not the clinical components, but the classes and research that are done in our department were originally like psychoacoustics, psycholinguistics. These things were originally in under the cognitive science umbrella, and they moved out on their own to be speech and hearing sciences. So cognitive science is kind of all those weird sorts of cool things. My area that I specialized in was auditory and visual perception, and the auditory part of that is what brought me here to speech and hearing, because, like I said, a lot of that had already moved over to speech and hearing, and so it's kind of a natural place for somebody with that specialization to go to. So also, while I was going through school, BS, MA, and PhD, well, mostly while I was doing my BS, I didn't 100% know what I was looking for. Some of you might be in this category, although there's a lot of you that are returning students, so you actually already do know what you want to do because you've already done the thing of not knowing. But some of you don't. And so over here, this first thing I did was I wanted to be an actor and a screenwriter. And then I went to, actually, that's not true. The first thing I wanted to do was do that, but I went through the journalism school. This is me when I worked at the ASU. Why is it leaving my mind? The campus radio station. There was a program where you could actually do like film, so screenwriting and stuff. Here, this is a still from a movie, and then this is just me. I'm a runner. So after I went through this, I went to creative writing, then English literature, and then over to psychology, where I found cognitive science, and I was like, oh, this is actually the thing that I'm gonna do for many years. So that's enough about not science me. Let's talk about science me. Here's some research that I've done. The first thing that we're going to talk about, I have to move my head, is swear words. Depending on how excited I get in any of my videos, you may know that I use these words often. But I also looked at them scientifically. One thing that I wanted to know is, do the rate of usage of different phonemes, does that change from regular speech, words that you use in regular speech, to swear words? And that actually is true. There is a difference in the rate of the usage rate of different phonemes in swear words versus non-swear words. So some of the things we tested this against were just nouns, names, and there's some people in the like 60s did these just totally ridiculous studies where they would look at 30 hours of university lectures and count up how many phonemes were used in that entire time. And it's the 60s, so you can't like automate it. So people actually had to like count, which is like, man, they really hated their RAs, their undergraduate research assistants, I guess. That sounds terrible. But now we know that information, and it actually is cool stuff to know. What we found out was 100 nouns, 100 different names, and 30 hours of university lectures have approximately the same amount, the same usage rates of phonemes. But swear words do not. And some of the most highly used vowels in swear words are a and and I think you can probably come up with some words that use those phonemes. If you can't, then maybe English is not your first language. So this is There's an interesting thing about in the English language. There's two Us. There's a stressed and unstressed version of The unstressed version of is called schwa. And that is just kind of like the default sound that we make as English speakers. Every language has a default sound, a default vowel sound. Ours is the schwa. And if you think about information, the shun at the end there, that is the unstressed the schwa. That's different from when you say something like shut, because that actually is using a stressed it looks a little bit differently if you look at it with I'm going to use terms that I have to teach you later in this class, so you're not going to know what it is. If you look at the acoustical structure of it, it looks a little bit different. And it also is made very slightly differently in the mouth. And so this bar that you're seeing here, this really tall bar for in swear words, and this fairly tall bar for in regular words, is actually combining both the stressed and unstressed us. If you break it out by stressed and unstressed, there's hardly any unstressed us in swear words, and there's not a lot of stressed us in regular words. But a lot of stressed us in swear words. And then you can see it's functioning like it should be. And then that's not the only component of the story. There's another thing going on here too. For regular words, you see a lot more e and oo usage. Those don't show up in swear words at all. I mean, think about all the swear words you know. Maybe some e's in some. There's like one word that I can think of that kind of has a e in it, but is it really a swear word? I'm not sure. Ooh, I can't really think of a good one with ooh. Maybe some slang terms, but not really a swear word. Slang body part terms. That's all I can come up with. So e and oo versus a and and there's some definite, again, acoustical differences between those. Similarities between the ones that are used in swear words and the ones that aren't, and some large differences between the two. We think that there is something purposeful in the way that the phonemes that are used for swear words are used. They're a little bit more negative and dissonant sounding. We'll talk about dissonance later in the class, but that's some of the research that I've been doing. Another thing I published a paper on this a couple of years ago, and I have another one that I just submitted on the Dundun talking drum, or the Nigerian talking drum. It's from kind of like southern Nigeria, where Yoruba is the most commonly spoken language. This drum can be used to convey speech information, because it, instead of just a regular drum where it's kind of like that, you can change the pitch of this drum, so it kind of goes like boom, 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 like that, which is really cool. But Yoruba is a tonal language. Um, so like the pitch that you say different words at or different syllables at is important for the for understanding what the word actually is. And because of that, you can use the talking drum to actually convey speech information. And one of the things that we did was we looked at the timing, the micro timing and pitch structure and loudness structure of the drum and speech, and saw that they were like in really close coordination with one another. So the drum is really functioning very much like an actual voice. It's not just kind of like sort of like a voice and people make this leap from one to the other. It's functioning very close to what the voice is actually doing. All the little pitch changes are represented in the drum. And then the last thing, this is my most recent paper, is up here. Oh, this is a guy playing the doon doon down here. My most recent paper up here, we were looking at ways that we can more early identify people with Alzheimer's disease. APOE allele 4 is a kind of a genetic marker. It's a risk factor for developing Alzheimer's. We looked at people who have and don't have the APOE allele 4 gene. But the people who do have it were like, they don't have Alzheimer's yet. So we're trying to identify people who will get it when they start getting it versus people who don't. And I did a lot of the math on this thing, and one of the things we're looking at is the forgetting curve, like the steepness of the forgetting curve. What does it actually correlate with? Does it tell us anything about getting Alzheimer's? Because, you know, there is some amount of just not performing as well on memory tasks as you age. It doesn't mean that you are getting dementia. It just is a thing that happens. And if that is different from one group to the other, then that tells us there's something about the way that the memory change happens that can help us more early identify people that are going to need intervention. And the other thing that, well, maybe this is in the news, like right now, there's a new drug that can help like stave off Alzheimer's. It doesn't cure it. It doesn't stop it, but it kind of like slows it. And so if people are able to use the data that we're presenting, the model that we're presenting, to look at the differences between all people, and they see that this is happening in someone, they can say they're a candidate for this new drug, and that would then give them a ton more time of being themselves before they're not. So this is, I don't know, fun work. Swear words and doon doon are fun, and then this other one is kind of like important stuff, actually, helping people live better lives. So that's what you can do as a researcher. Let's talk about the class. Here's the schedule of the semester. There's 5 exams. There's 1 exam for each like quarter sort of what we're doing. For some reason we have like 1 less week than we usually have, and it's because of the semester we're in. So there's going to be 1 exam that's kind of like wonkily timed, but that's okay. So there's going to be 1 exam for each quarter of the class, and then there's a last exam. That last exam is a cumulative final. Your lowest exam score is dropped. So if for some reason you totally forget to take the exam, or you got to go do something or something like that, it's fine. You get a 0 on it. It's okay. That's dropped. You just have to do well on your other ones. If you, need to kind of like, some people don't do well on the first exam. You kind of have to figure out how the instructor asks the questions. That's okay. If you get a 70 on your first exam and you usually get 90s, well, the first one will be dropped and you'll keep all of your 90s. And here's the other thing. What this means is if you do really well from the very beginning, you get like the score that you feel comfortable with, let's say 95 or 100. If you score 100 on all of your first 4 exams, that means that your last one you don't have to take because it would go in as a 0 and then the lowest one's dropped. So you have 100 on all these and then you drop this one. And so then you only retain your highest 4 scores. So that doesn't necessarily mean that the final is optional because really it's only optional if you did well on your first 4. But if you did well on your first 4, it's kind of like an optional final. The other thing is if you did sort of well on your first 4, you can like just roll the dice and see how you do on the final. And for others of you, if you do really bad on any of these, you then have that final to redeem the scores that you have. There are 6 quizzes in this class. There's actually 7. So I should change that. There's 7 quizzes in this class. You get 2 attempts for each one. What I want you to do is for your first attempt on each quiz, treat it like an exam. Actually, let's go back to talking about the exams really quickly. So the exams are closed note, closed book. You're going to use the Respondus lockdown browser. You'll have to turn on your camera. You won't be able to navigate out to any other windows. So this is really just like you're going to do this exam. And, you know, there's nothing, you can't have anything with you. So it's all closed. It's closed note, closed book, all that kind of stuff. Okay, back to quizzes. The first time you take the quiz, what I want you to do is treat it like an exam. Don't use your notes. Don't use your book. Just see what you know. And then the second time, because you get 2 attempts, on your second attempt, I want you to get all of your notes out and just get all the points. So the first one, see what you know, see what you need to study. The second time through, get all the points. Everybody should totally be getting all the points on all the quizzes because you have 2 attempts. So first one, test yourself. Second one, just get the points. There's also 3 homeworks. These are 2 written papers and 1 final presentation. You don't have to like present it. You can, and we'll talk about that later. But the first written assignment is really short. It's just kind of a short 2-paragraph thing. 1 page, no longer than a page, easy. The second one is actually like you're going to have to find sources. You're going to have to tell me about a disorder that you are really interested in. So you're going to deep dive on a disorder of your choice. So it should be, you know, pretty interesting because you'll choose something that you actually want to look into. And then the last thing is you're going to take that second paper, you're going to add some more sources to it, and you're going to turn it into a PowerPoint presentation. So you don't have to spend all the time writing it again and like adding double the pages or something like usual writing assignments. And then also I don't have to read 200 papers. I only have to read 100 papers. So, but then I get to look at all those PowerPoints. But I like looking at PowerPoints, so it's good. And that is what you're going to have to do for that. There's a lot more information on those homework assignments when we get to them. Like I said, the first one is going to ease you in. It's real short and easy. There's also some extra credit in the class. You will have the opportunity to like participate in some of my research or some research, other research that's being done around the department. And then if for some reason there isn't any research studies going on this semester, which there definitely will be, then there's another opportunity, another option for you to do that. Or if for some reason you don't qualify for any of those studies, there is another option. Okay, let's move on. DRC and sales. The DRC stands for the Disability Resource Center. It is not called that anymore. It's now called SAILS, which is the Student Accessibility. Yeah. I always look this up after I record these videos to try to remember that. I don't remember what it is, but it's like the same idea as Disability Resource Center. You can visit them in person if you're here in Arizona. You can visit them digitally if you're not. And why would you do this? Because maybe you feel like you could use some sort of accommodation. So let me tell you a really quick story. I had a student in one of my classes who I do this spiel about the DRC. I'm like, hey, if you feel like, school's really hard for you for some reason and it doesn't seem like it is for anybody else, maybe you should go talk to the DRC. This student told me that on their exams, this is an in-person class. So the exams are in person, we're there, and he's like, hey, I just can never get done with the exams in time. That's why my grades are so low. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, people say that. And then you look at their exams and it's like, well, you weren't doing very good throughout the whole thing. So I looked at his exam and it, 100% on all of it until he got to, maybe the last page, and then nothing was done because he didn't have time. And so it came out to like a 75%, and he really wanted an A. And I said, what's the deal? Like, why do you not have time? Are you like thinking about the answers and slowing yourself down? And he's like, no, I have to like read very carefully to understand what each question is asking. I'm like, that's not normal. Maybe you should go to the DRC. And so he did. And he figured out that he actually had dyslexia. He'd had dyslexia his whole life. It wasn't like bad enough that they caught it in grade school. It was just like it took him longer than usual to read stuff. Once he got through it, he understood it really well, as evidenced by his good grades. But it was slowing him down from his test. So he went to the DRC. There's something I want to show you. There's a font. So if any of you are listening to this and you're like, oh, that kind of sounds like me. There's a font called Open Dyslexic. This font, kind of looks like a funky, like 70s font. But for some reason, this works really well for certain types of dyslexia, which is a thing that at the time I didn't know that there were like different types of dyslexia. But there are. And so for some people that have dyslexia, this is really a lot more easy to read. Somehow having these be like asymmetrical and look a little bit different and like kind of, like, I don't know, they're on drugs, I guess. Like the letters are on drugs, are more easy to read. So if you're looking at this and this is like really easy for you to read, easier than regular fonts, download it. It's free. Go online and download this. And then also make an appointment with the DRC. Or tell your friends who are dyslexic about this font. Maybe they know, maybe they don't. Okay, so let's go back to, hey, why is Alt-Tab not working? There we go. So go see sales if you think that any of this can work. You can also visit them for test anxiety, auditory processing disorder, all these different things. Oh, by the way, that student who had dyslexia went to the DRC, got some accommodations, extra time on his exams. He has, put that font on his computer, and essentially, like, it changed his entire college experience. He's now in medical school. He actually might have graduated already. So he could be a doctor by now, but he definitely was in medical school. So this really like changed the whole trajectory of college for him. He was a good student, but it wasn't like showing up because there were problems. So he went to DRC, and now those problems don't affect him anymore. So if you think that any of this sounds like you, auditory processing disorder, test anxiety, go to sales and see what they can do for you. It never hurts to find out, right? Because here's the thing. If you talk to them and you don't qualify, nobody knows. Your family doesn't know. I don't know. No one knows. None of your instructors do. The only person who knows is you and the person that you talk to at sales. And they can't say anything about it because of HIPAA or something like that. It's either HIPAA or FERPA. but because it's medical, I don't really know which one it would come under. But they can't tell anybody, is what I'm saying. So there's nothing to be ashamed of, whether you do or don't qualify. Go find out. And the other thing is, if you do qualify for it, then that can totally like change everything about your college experience and possibly your whole life afterwards. Okay, last thing. This class is diversity positive. I'm on the CHS Council for Inclusive Excellence, which is a long name. I work for both curriculum, which is like, in the class stuff, and hiring practices. I'm also a member of the Health Equity Policy Network. Equitable treatment for everyone is like a great thing. The problem with that is there's not like a whole lot of topics that we cover in exploring communication disorders that are super diverse. So it's not here. That doesn't mean that I don't support the idea. But what we will do is we'll look at some health disparities when we talk about disease and disorder prevalence. So when we talk about stroke, we'll talk about how not everyone is treated the same when they present at an emergency room with stroke. So this is just something to keep in mind as you go further into your career as being a clinician, that health disparities are there, and also something to like overcome. And here's the thing. This is the other thing. I think the most obvious health disparity is like the one that we all think of as like, oh, it's a race-based health disparity. That's true. But that's not the only one. There are weight-based health disparities. There are location in the U.S. based health disparities. There are, there's a lot of them. Age, that's another one. All sorts of things. So there's tons of different types of health disparities. And we'll kind of touch on some of those in the class. Okay, so now, what's your next step? You need to go look at the syllabus, because the first quiz, which is open right now, is about things that I've said and things that are in the syllabus. So like important parts of this class is what your first quiz is on. First of 7, not 6. So there's this one, which is about the class. There's one at the very end that's like a kind of a comprehensive quiz of everything that you've learned. That's to help you study for the final, which, by the way, take that quiz even if you did really well and you're not going to take the final, because that quiz is required even though you may be dropping your 0 from the final if you don't take it. So take all the quizzes. Those are your first quizzes. The quizzes in between are over each module that they're in. Okay, go look at the syllabus, and I will talk to you next week in some videos about disorders. You're also going to see this a lot, is that I forget that I have to click stop, and I just end the video, and then I'm like, oh yeah, now you're going to look at me. Okay.